XFM. Elis James and John Robbins on XFM podcast.
Thank you ever so much for taking the time to download the Elis James and John Robbins podcast from XFM. We are now stood in an old classic gold studio, feeling sad about the passing of time, which is a something we do. I reference in the show.
Yeah, although I was feeling sad, but now I'm excited because whoever uses this studio usually has got a big box of Cocoa Pops and an even bigger can of Guinness and some spray disinfectant.
Yeah, some spray disinfectant in one of those sort of plant sprayer, which I don't know what goes on in here that would require Cocoa Pops, Guinness and disinfectant. Sounds like some really bad sort of rock and roll anecdote. Well, we used to get the Cocoa Pops out, everyone would know. It wasn't long till the Guinness would start flowing around.
Well, I mean, when you've been touring America for 2 years, you know, you're sort of... I mean, when it comes to what you think is moral and ethically correct, it really changes. And we would be doing gigs out in the arse end of Arizona, sort of just Cocoa Pops everywhere.
And call us what you will, and depending on what paper you read, a lot has been said about us, but we were always clean. Disinfectant was always close to hand, so I don't want any of this nonsense being raked up about germs, uncleansed surfaces, or cuts that weren't properly treated at the time.
Also, even though we were, sort of burning the candle at both ends, we weren't anemic because of the huge amounts of Guinness we were drinking.
So on the podcast, we've got some regular features. We've got Sacred Cows, where we tussle with Stadium Rock monoliths. REM.
I think you mean behemoths. You don't mean monoliths there, do you?
Yes, I mean they were just a big block of stone erected in front of the White House.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe I don't mean monoliths. And we do a shout out, which is always quite fun. And we cleansed the palate after last week's Farthingate with the Winner Plays On.
Yeah,
so,
if you're a regular listener to the podcast, you realise that competitive John, as he now is in my mobile phone, gets very upset over sort of Winner Plays On because he feels that he lost unfairly. It was trending on Twitter. People were referring to it as Farthingate. For me, it was bigger than Motorgate. And producer Dave should be impeached. Like they did to Nixon.
So do join us live from 10 till 1 every Sunday. But if you are a podcast regular, then thanks so much for downloading it. Do tell your friends, and we'll see you after the show. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Elis James and John Robbins podcast. XFM.
Good morning, listeners. That was Ho Hey by the Lumineers. You're listening to John Robbins and Elis James on XFM. I'm John Robbins, and to my left, as luck would have it, is ABBA fans' first qualified cycling proficiency instructor. It's Mr. Elis James.
Oh, hello. Good evening. Sorry, it's not good evening. I thought I was doing a gig then. Good Good morning.
How are you doing, El?
Excellent.
Why so? What have you got to be happy about?
I went on holiday to Pembrokeshire. I went to Barafundle, which is one of the world's top 12 beaches and one of Gorky's Iconic Monkeys' best albums. I watched Duck Soup, the Marx Brothers films last night with my girlfriend over a spaghetti bolognese.
I mean, that is a dream holiday for anyone
over the age of 50.
I'd say 70. Why is Barafundle a good beach?
Oh, I mean,
it sounds like a character out of sort of Alice in Wonderland.
It does, but the sheer water quality, the white sand, the fact that it's secluded. It's
what did you make use of the seclusion?
No.
Well, what's the use of the beach being secluded then?
Well, I swore a couple of times.
Elis obviously needs time away from the paparazzi to get a bit of time with him and his good lady and the seals.
Yeah,
I hear not in any secluded manner.
No, I went seal watching as well.
How was that?
I saw a couple.
Did you?
Well, I'm always very cynical about stuff like seal watching.
About seals?
Yeah. They're idiots.
They're lazy.
But no, there was some... I took a photo of a couple... Well, on the photo, it's just a black dot in the sea.
I mean, it sounds like an absolute dream.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, the more I talk about it, the worse it sounds. What have you been up to?
I was at a wedding yesterday in Exeter.
Oh, yeah?
And it was lovely. It was definitely the least tense wedding I've ever been to in terms of no one sort of sit there thinking, oh, I hope this doesn't go wrong, because it was very relaxed. It was like, imagine a sort of a Nokia Lumia advert that begins with the sound of a ukulele.
Oh, yeah.
And it's that type of affair without it being off, like...
Right. Was there a lot of vintage?
No, it was sort of like, it was that vibe, but without the sort of pop-up shop feel to it. So everyone was sort of sat in a circle outside under a tree, and the couple were married in the middle. And so it was really lovely.
Oh.
And Elis, there were a few celebs there.
Oh, yeah?
Because my friend Ben is a record label exec, top flyer. So the bride was played in by Jan Tiersen, who wrote the Amelie soundtrack on the violin. So that's not making it sound less pop-up shop. I mean, anyone from Shoreditch would have lost their mind. And Matthew E. White was there. Do you know him?
No.
Vin, do you know Matthew E. White?
No idea.
Unless he's
right, guys, he's actually a pretty big celeb. So musically, and his band were there. And what about this for a treat? Ben produced the Second Song Wars album by Adam and Joe, released it, and there was a message from Adam Buxton played.
That is good.
Which was very cool. So
XFM's very own Adam Buxton.
Yeah, so usually I'm kind of the interesting one at weddings because I do comedy, and that's quite unusual. I was the fourth most interesting person at this wedding.
Well,
and let's face it, whenever I go to a wedding, it's about me. Right, guys?
That's amazing.
So, it was like, oh, right, there's that guy that's trying out comedy. So I'm just chatting to...
Trying out comedy?
Yeah.
What a slam.
I'm just chatting to Jan Tiersen and Matthew E. White, and then I'm going to listen to that Adam Buxton recording again. So what was it you did? So you think you're funny in 2005?
Oh, dear me.
So, but it was absolutely lovely. So I had it's quite a lot. I worked out that in the last 24 hours, on average, I've been travelling at 20 miles an hour because of all the driving I've done.
Oh, well, good news, because when I get married, you'll be probably the 15th most interesting person here, because my girlfriend knows a lot of actresses.
If I turn up.
FM, Elis James and John Robbins podcast.
Absolutely no need to tell you who that was. That was Nirvana with Smells Like Teen Spirit. There's a song that's really not dated.
No, it's fantastic.
It's a smash.
And he, the way he dresses and stuff hasn't dated either.
No, it's true. Converse, ripped jeans. It's all Robbins. Unlike Elis, who walks around looking like an extra from the Who film. Quadrophenia. There we go. I got my references there.
Because I was in Camden yesterday, and I mean, if you put him on Camden High Street, people just think, oh yeah, there's a bloke there who works in a pub.
What's terrifying about the way Elis dresses is you're not sure whether he's the politest, neatest man in the world or done a 10 stretch and has a shank on his possession. It's that really intimidating smartness. It's the top button done up on all shirts that makes you think either this guy is going to take me out for a Pizza Express and talk to me about his job as a marketing consultant, or he's going to get me in a headlock and call 3 big mates round who are going to kick me whilst listening to music.
At the end of
what type of music is it?
At the end of the day, I'm capable of both.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
At this wedding I went to, which was wonderful, they had this lovely marquee sort of zone afterwards, and we all sat on tables based around albums. Oh. So I was on Kate Bush's Lionheart.
Right.
I was a bit annoyed I didn't get on Fleetwood Mac's Rumours, but that's neither here nor there. But they did this, it's amazing.
It's not your day, Jack. It's not your day.
And there were 3 best men, none of which were me. But it's amazing. In the last year, I've become vegetarian, nearly a year ago, and there was a hog roast at the wedding, which I mean, it's one of those moments where I wished I could have eaten some. But before we ate the hog roast, it was a full pig on a spit that had been roasted, with a spit going through its mouth and out of its curly tail zone. And they paraded it round the tent, which, like, a year ago, I would have been mouth watering.
So your friend got married on the set of The Wicker Man.
What was amazing was, having turned vegetarian, and so I don't have any problem with people eating meat at all, but having researched sort of the stuff behind why I don't eat meat anymore, the view of a pig's corpse that had been roasted being paraded around a tent. It felt like I was part of a sort of terrible... something I really didn't agree with. Yes, inflation's high, and I want bread, but I'm not sure I'm cool with where this is going. Because the people who live next door are nice.
I mean, it wasn't like what they do to sort of foreign footballers in Turkey. They didn't sort of put some pig's juice on the bride's dress or anything.
No, but the groom was given the oyster, and I'm not sure that's a part of a pig as a ceremony. Now, listeners, we should say our usual producer Dave is not here today.
Yeah,
he claims to be on a stag do in Amsterdam. Oh, am I allowed to say that?
Yeah,
he is researching the history of radio in Amsterdam. And I'm suspicious that he is actually afraid that Liverpool are going to batter Man City today and wants to be well away from me when that inevitably occurs. So joining us today is the wonderful producer Simon.
Good morning.
Hello, producer Simon.
Morning.
And, sorry, I've just, on the screen, we've got the London Marathon on. There's a guy dressed as Charlie Chaplin doing a funny walk. He's the last to start, is he?
I tell you one thing, it is going to be a long 26 miles if you're doing it in a funny walk.
Remind me to tell you about my journey in, because I got the tube with a lot of marathon runners.
Oh, did you?
And there were some great costumes. But we'll do that a little bit later on.
Oh, will we now?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I prefer you to producer Dave. Am I allowed to say that this early on?
I don't know. That's very nice.
Well, if producer Dave's listening, when he's on Booze Britain 3, Amsterdam special. Boy, Elis James! Telling me he thinks producer Simon's better!
That's remarkably good.
Elis James and John Robbins podcast
XFM.
on XFM.
Ian Brown on XFM. You're listening to Elis James and John Robbins. I would love to hang out with Ian Brown, but never would, for the fear that he would hate me.
Why would he? What would he take umbrage?
I don't know.
With?
I just think I'd say something wrong early doors, and then that would be it for me and Ian.
Really?
I don't know what I'd say. I'd say something like, I don't know. I'd make a schoolboy error. I'd call dinner lunch or something and be like, that's it for me and you, mate. Sorry. Get out. And also he quite famously had a big go at Steve Jones, the Welsh sort of presenter from like Pop World and stuff, during an interview. And so I've got a sneaking suspicion that he's got a problem with the Welsh.
What did he? Why did he have a go in?
They just had it was a very, very tense interview. I think Steve took the mickey out of his singing a bit, and it was very early in the morning.
Yeah, that's a risky play, isn't it?
Yeah, when someone, when they haven't had quite enough cups of tea and coffee yet so that they're feeling sprightly, to then have your singing taken the mickey out of on a music show, you're like, oh, come on, mate. Which is basically what he said. And then, so, I mean, I often fantasise about being friends with Ian Brown, but I've got a feeling that it's never going to come to fruition. But tell me more about this wedding.
Well, I tell you what, it was so lovely and such a nice day. But it's kind of, I don't know if you agree, but when you are at school and at uni, you see your friends every day, and then when you leave uni, you see them twice a week down the pub, quiz night, maybe another drink. Then when you sort of get into your late 20s, early 30s, maybe you see them sort of once a month. And I'm in that stage where you're kind of all together once a year, which is lovely, but it sort of makes me a bit sad.
Yes.
Reminder of time's inevitable passing and the closening of death. But you can't say that at a wedding. Try chipping into the best man's speech with that little nugget. But
what's weird is that I can imagine you doing that. like if you'd come into the office this morning looking a bit down, a bit red, a bit tired, and I'm like, you're right, John. Oh, it was Ben's wedding, wasn't it? Yeah. How was it then? Yeah. No, it must have been great. I've not seen Ben for ages. Oh, I bet she looked lovely, does she? Yeah. I reminded everyone that we're all sort of a day closer to death doing this speech, and the bride's mum cried, and Ben's mum, she didn't say anything,
And Ben didn't say anything. That was the worst bit. Ben didn't say anything. That is the worst bit. But other people I don't know, they said stuff, and then I had to drive back because of the show. And I haven't slept, Elis, because I am haunted by pointing out that we are all sort of rapidly approaching death during the speech, and she cried on her big. I mean,
well, how's this for an anecdote? A guy at the wedding, to another friend of mine, was talking about wedding anecdotes. And his friend had an agreement with his cousin, who was a girl, when they were kids, that if he got married, she would turn up in a wedding dress as a child's agreement at age sort of 8. Fast forward 25 years, the big day comes, and they've sort of still in contact, but not as closely when they were kids. She thinks, do you know what would be great? Is if I honour a childhood joke. It'll be a funny joke at the wedding. It'll be in the speeches. She turns up in a wedding dress to a wedding that isn't hers and was asked to leave. And her family who were with her got very irate, saying, it's a joke, it's a fun joke. And people were taking them to one side and said, you have ruined someone's day.
That is amazing.
Can you imagine the mentality of someone who doesn't for a second think, isn't this the worst idea I've ever had in my life? You know when you think of something, think, thank God I didn't do that.
I went to a wedding in Devon, actually, about 4 or 5 years ago. And obviously Devon's a very rural area. And we were in the sort of the marquee, you know, the ceremony had happened, and everyone's just milling around and chatting, and there was a cow giving birth to a calf in an adjacent field.
The circle of life.
Yeah, and everyone's getting very, very excited. And this is brilliant. This is great.
Circle of life.
This is
the horror of nature.
This is amazing. This is so great. And the couple, I think they lived in London, so a lot of Londoners there who hadn't seen this sort of thing happen before, and everyone's very, look at that, it's amazing, look at it, it's incredible, I love it. And we all went in for the meal, and that was brilliant, and then the speeches were great, and they were really funny, and then the best man went, and on today, it's a real honour for me to tell everybody that on a day such as today, and now that we've had all the wonderful speeches, ladies and gentlemen, I can welcome a new life into the world. The cow has given birth to a baby calf. And everybody went, yay! And everybody ran out to have a look at this, and the calf had died.
Oh, my Lord!
And people were like, whoa! And all the Londoners were like, why isn't he standing up? Why isn't he standing up? And there was the farmer, he unceremonially sort of kicked the calf a couple of times to make sure that it had died. He was like, oh dear! And then he went in to get a bin bag or something.
Oh,
all the
my
Londoners were crying,
Lord.
Oh,
and the bride was crying. It was incredible.
XFM. Elis James and John Robbins on XFM podcast.
It's beginning to look overcast. A wind has picked up. Even though the forecast said things were going to be bright and sunny today, in fact, it's sweater weather by the neighbourhood. You're listening to Elis James and John Robbins on XFM. And this
That's
morning...
your best one yet.
Is it? I thought my one about dental floss, about interdental brushes for stuck in your teeth.
I think probably you're the only DJ on the planet who can back-reference songs by talking about dental floss and dental brushes.
So today we're talking about wedding anecdotes, and I think in light of the fact the wedding I went to was so beautiful, we're going to talk. We want to hear your disasters. We want to hear your nightmares. Producer Simon was telling us a story. Do you want to tell it to the listeners? P.S.
Well, just to recap very quickly, I went to a wedding where they booked months in advance, like you have to do for a wedding venue. But unfortunately, unavoidably, this place then had to have some DIY done, some decoration because of a leaky roof.
Yeah.
But they covered it up. They put some curtains up, but there was lots of DIY material. They'd had the ceremony, they were walking in to have the reception.
Like an orbital sander just hanging around.
Yeah, unfortunately, you could see, if you decided to go looking, you could see a DIY, Black & Decker bench hanging out around the back. But where they kind of canvassed it all off, put up a nice curtain, that unfortunately, that came down. I don't know if somebody leant on it, pulled on it, whatever, but it basically resulted in the bride getting covered in what I can only describe as maybe dove grey Dulux emulsion down her whole right side.
absolute nightmare.
So you had so you had plenty of people. Kind of just searching for words to say. It'll be fine.
Because that's not like red wine, where someone will go, "Don't worry, get the vinegar and the salt and the
get
soda
the white
water."
Wine. It's white wine and salt. That's
But
really
it's
white wine.
How do you get out a litre of grey emulsion? I mean, it's not a job worth beginning.
No.
Oh dear. Well, she must have been in floods of tears.
You know what? She bounced back pretty quickly because she had bought a rather expensive dress to wear in the evening.
Okay.
So she was going to change into. So that made everything all right.
If anything, it was
And
it was
the paint-
good. It moved
yeah.
things along a bit.
It was a blessing.
Got to the food quicker. So yeah, if you've got any wedding disasters, that would be absolutely brilliant.
We're not talking about divorce.
No, not 10 years down the line. Not, weekend visitation rights.
She was cheating on me.
No, nothing
Not
like
that.
that. I mean, unless it happened in an amusing way on the day. But, I've had one from my friend about the woman turning up in a dress, which is completely bonkers. Elis's stillborn calf and producer Simon's grey emulsion. So they're three to kick us off. So if you do have any wedding incidents, do text in on 83936 or tweet at XFM.
Problems. It's human nature to hate problems. But why is that? After all, problems inspire us to mend things, bend things, make things better. That's why so many people work with IBM on everything, from city traffic to ocean plastic, new schools to new energy, flight delays to food safety. Smart loves problems. IBM. Let's put smart to work. Visit ibm.com/smart/UK to learn more.
XFM. Elis James and John Robbins on XFM podcast.
We're talking about wedding disasters today, about sort of inappropriate jokes, logistical failures, best man nightmares, and we've had Elis. Do you want to read the text we had in? It's a cracker.
Yeah, not so much a disaster. Well, I think it is. But I was photographing a wedding where the groom persuading all the guests not to laugh at anything in the best man's speech. It was horrific as this man worked his way through the most important speech of his life to a room of stony silence. Truly horrible, Stuart.
That is... that's a really cruel joke, because the best man speech is probably the nerviest part, because most of the other speeches are they are about sort of ritual, and you have to do certain things, and you have to thank certain people and say certain people look lovely, and you've got that, whereas the best man speech, it's people having to do stand-up comedy, basically.
Tough gig as well.
Very tough gig.
Because you've got 2-year-olds there and 8-year-olds and everything in between.
That's why a comedian would rarely take a gig at a wedding, because because A, no one knows there's going to be comedy, B, it's not set up for comedy, and C, you cannot entertain all those people.
No. And I'm a really great stand-up comic, but even I would struggle at that.
Well, Ellie, you did a gig at a wedding, didn't you?
I foolishly did a gig at a wedding when I was very new. I'd only done about 10 gigs. And this lady got hold of me somehow. And she called me up and she said, "Do you want to do a gig at my wedding?" And I was like, "All right, it's all stage time," because I was so naive. yeah, cool. And she said, "Could you do 20 minutes?" I said, "Well, I did 18 minutes at my last gig, but I'm sure that I could write another 2. Yeah, no problem." And I turned up, and it was very early on in my career, and at the time, my best routine was about my mum had helped me move house, and she'd put some CDs in the wrong cases. I mean, it sounds bad, and it was bad. It wasn't bad. And they didn't know who I was, and they didn't know that there was going to be comedy happening. So I got given the mic, and I went, you know. And the DJ had clappy hands on his baseball cap, and he didn't let me perform at one stage because he was like, "Have you got performers liability insurance?" And I was like, "No." And he went, "Well, what if an old lady trips over the mic lead and then she dies?" I was like, "Well, I'll just take that risk." And I performed for about 3 minutes, and it was horrific. And the father of the bride came up to me at the end. He was like, "Listen, what was that?" And I said, I know it wasn't very good." He went, "It wasn't comedy." I said, I'm from the alternative circuit." He went, "What, alternative to funny, is it? Alternative to jokes?" I said, "Yeah, I'm sorry about that." He was like, he said, "Have you ever done Lacha Working Man's Club?" I said, "No." And he went, "Have you ever done Tremadog Working Man's Club?" I said, "No." "Have you ever done Tansamlet Working Man's Club?" I said, "No." And he went, "Because if you do, my boy, you will get torn to shreds."
Oh, wow.
And I went, "Cheers, thank you. And as I walked out, everyone was just sort of silent, and this bloke came up to me and went, excuse me, that anecdote you were telling about your mother putting the CDs in the wrong cases. I said, yeah. He went, why was that funny? Because I was just saying, I just couldn't work out where the joke was. I said, just forget it, mate.
It's the horrible thing is that you are trying to improve someone's day.
And I've ruined it.
Ruined it, and they will always remember that.
Yes.
Elis James and John Robbins podcast. XFM.
That was the Libertines with Don't Look Back Into... What's the end of the song? Because on my screen it's just an ellipsis, unless they're being cool and great radio here. Do we know?
Are you not a fan of the Libertines, John?
I am, but I can't read what doesn't exist.
That was the Libertines.
That was the Libertines! God, John, you idiot! Why did you just say that? Crying out loud. You got a brain? Good Lord, that was the Libertines.
Great producing for producer Simon, though. He really earned his money there, isn't he? By going, just say it's the Libertines, John. Yeah, okay. I'm doing it. I'm still happy. I'm happy to be here.
Oh, well, moving on from that.
My friend wrote the book on the Libertines. My friend Pete.
Did he?
Yeah. It
Is
was
this Pete who we talked to in our first ever show?
about Bruce Springsteen. Yeah, my friend Welsh Pete. He wrote the book on the Libertines that I think was like Mojo Rock Book of the Year 2004, 2000, because he was in a band that supported them.
Is he in the top tax bracket?
I don't know. Why do you keep talking about tax brackets?
Also, we did talk about that off air.
You're obsessed by tax brackets.
I think it's a funny thing to introduce someone as being in the top tax bracket. So moving on from the Libertines, do read the book if you like that.
Don't look back into the sun.
Don't look back into the sun. Well, that's just good advice.
Yeah.
It'll blind you. You'll move forward. You'll walk into something or be hit by a car.
Pete's book is called Kids in the Riot, and it's absolutely rip-roaring read. And I don't want to I don't want to do him a disservice. But
well, you're not. You've advertised his book twice.
Well, what I was going to say was they were such an interesting band. I think anyone could. No, that's very unfair.
Right. We haven't got time to spend this link plugging your mate's book. For balance, do check out Queen As It Began by Jackie Gunn, one of the best biographies of early Queen. We've had some really top-level texts and tweets about wedding disasters. So first off, we've discussed how to read this text out. We're just going to read it out as is. We're not going to linger on it, but it's a cracking incident. At my brother's wedding, the kilt-wearing best man sat on the bride's knee for the photos, unfortunately leaving a skid mark on her dress. Oh. That's from Frankie. We're not going to dwell on it, but what a horrific thing to happen. When I married my now ex-husband, I love that. I already like this text.
Yeah.
He stood up to deliver the speech he'd been boasting about for days. It contained one brief mention of me, which consisted of him describing the socks I'd been wearing when we met at V Festival a few years before.
How do you get that wrong, so wrong? I think people panic. I think they feel under such pressure on wedding days for their big speech that they've got to go very funny. They've got to be really funny, or they've got to go very whimsical.
Yeah, but it's basic stuff.
Yeah,
and
the bride looks beautiful. The bridesmaids look beautiful. Thank the parents. Thank everyone for coming. Couple of quips, self-deprecating, raise a glass, bang, you're out there, disco.
My friend Robin has been a best man 4 times. Each time he has been excellent. And what he says, the key, keep the speech short.
Yeah.
7 minutes max.
Yeah.
Right? First you are polite, then you are funny, then go for the tears. Bang. It's basic stuff.
Also, there are no need for props.
Absolutely zero. Audiovisual items in speeches rarely work.
Yeah. There's no, ladies, gents. If you're writing a best man speech, maybe for next week or something, you do not need PowerPoint.
Well, one of the first weddings I went to, the best man's speech, he started with a joke. I may have told this on the show a few weeks ago. I don't think I did. He started by saying the joke he was trying to make was that the groom was nervous and was, quote, bricking it. So he opened his speech. He got out a Sainsbury's carry bag and said. The groom's pretty nervous. I looked in the toilet and I found this in there. And what he should have done is pulled out a fresh, red, newly minted brick.
Yeah.
What he pulled out was an old brick covered in moss that from more than a yard away looked like some effluent, and it didn't make any sense. We also had a good tweet from a bass man, or ass man. At XFM, we had a wedding disaster when I, brackets the bride, was bitten by a bat. The wedding was in the US, where 90% of bats have rabies. Lots of panic, but ended well.
Oh,
That would be a nightmare.
Yeah.
The last thing you want on your wedding day is lockjaw. That's tetanus.
The last thing also you want on your wedding day is for people. Is there a doctor in the room? Is there a doctor in the room?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, bitten by a bat as well. How did that even happen?
Maybe they are fans of that vampire programme and had it at night. Maybe it was maybe they're like sort of goths, and instead of releasing doves, they just released 10 bats. Then in that case, serves you right. So coming up after the next zone, why can't I think of a word? Coming out after more music, we've got our regular feature, Sacred Cows, where we will argue about one of the all-time great bands, whether they deserve their acclaim. But first, if you're going out more than 25 yards into the sea, do be careful. Make sure there's a lifeguard in attendance, because you may get caught in a riptide by Vance Joy.
FM. Elis James and John Robbins podcast.
It's time for that regular feature of the show. Producer Simon, you ready? Okay, this is where I go. Hit the sting, Sacred Cow.
Well, that's given away who is Sacred Cow.
Yeah, I am.
What I've done there is I've jumped the gun.
I am nominating the B-52s.
Well saved by Elis James.
No,
there.
it's
Let's try it again, hang on.
Okay. It's time for that regular feature of the show, Sacred Cow.
XFM's Sacred Cow. Sacred Cow. Sacred Cow.
I'm new to this, I do apologise.
That's all right.
You also, I thought you were going to put your own stamp on the Sacred Cow sting there by maybe adding to it with some, cud chewing or other cow stuff.
Sound of a
should have done.
stillborn calf.
I feel-
You have to have been listening earlier in the show for that not to be a horrific thing to say. Ellis told an anecdote about a cow dying at a wedding. Good Lord. And maybe that's too strong a phrase for 11:16 on a Sunday. Anyway, Ellis, who are you nominating for this week's Sacred Cows?
Nominating, it feels like a long time ago now that we started this link. I am nominating R.E.M. Mainly because whenever we play this song, Robbins plays air guitar in one of the most uncool ways I've ever seen in my life.
Firstly, it's in a very cool way, and the reason I'm playing air guitar is because I'm imagining I'm a student at Reading University in 1993. I'm wearing a baggy, multicoloured shirt, some slacks that are quite short, and a lovely pair of brogues. I'm listening to Cracker. Watching Cracker, sorry. I'm involved in all early 90s culture. I'm yet to be made aware of how Big Crowded House are going to change my life. And I'm chinning back to the greatest student rock band of all time, you idiot. I mean...
Please keep talking about the 90s. It's very entertaining when you do this.
Queen fan club magazines...
That's not just the early 90s.
Football on the telly, the normal telly, on the BBC.
Telly. Yeah, Graham Souness is manager of Liverpool.
Well, let's not dwell on that, because he absolutely set our club back. Sorry, I'm not going to talk into football, but Souness, I hold you minorly responsible for the fact that it's you. It's gonna come on today. Come on, Ronnie.
Right. Anyway, now R.E.M. I think there's sort of two different bands in that they're early period in the 80s, before they signed to Warner, before they were on a major label. They were almost like the sort of American Smiths in that they were sort of the band of the outsider and stuff, and they were this very exciting indie band.
Can I just interject there? I think all people who make that argument about R.E.M. never listened to them in the 80s. They have since thought, the cool thing to say about R.E.M. is that they were actually really good before the 90s. They were actually really underground. It's just, it doesn't... I'm just saying that.
Okay,
I'm saying that.
All right, fair enough. You've said it. You said
I like
it on
his
air.
early stuff. You didn't listen to his early stuff. That's what people say. Yeah, you didn't like it when it was good. You didn't listen to it when it was good. Carry on.
Right, okay. But what I will say is I don't hate REM at all. In fact, I have an REM playlist on my iTunes.
So what the Crivens are you doing nominating them for Sacred Cow?
Don't understand. I think by the time they got really massive, they sold 85 million records. They would do stadiums.
Yeah.
You know, they would play Cardiff Arms Park and stuff in front of 6,000 people. By that stage, I just don't really get it as much. I think they became a bit boring in the 90s.
What?
Yes.
Right, I'm going to get my list of reasons why REM are great. So, in revisiting REM, because I kind of came to this thinking, well, you know, I can kind of take them or leave them, I can play devil's advocate, and researching REM, I could not find a bad word about them. So here are my arguments. Automatic for the People, Out of Time are absolute smashes.
Right.
Hit after hit after hit. There is not a song on those albums that you don't know and love.
Okay.
And if I played you them now, you'd be like, I can't believe this is next.
Right.
The early 90s was quite a barren time for good music.
Ooh, I'm not sure I agree with that.
Ebenezer good. The theme from the Guinness advert. You know, I mean, Pato Banton's Bubbling Hot. It was a poor time for music.
Pato
Banton's Bubbling Hot, which is the first single I ever bought. And then I took it back and exchanged it for Pulp's Misshapes.
Oh,
which I'm glad I did.
Wasn't Pato Banton the one who did Sweet for My Sweet?
Yeah, actually,
Sugar for My Honey, yeah.
I am out on Pato Banton and the Guinness theme. Ebenezer good, yes. Actually, I think I've got my ears wrong. Anyway, early 90s was not a strong card. It was, unless you were into kind of...
Michelle Gale's Sweetness, which I bought. M People's Elegant Slumming, which won the Mercury Music Prize.
Rhythm is a Dancer.
Which I own.
So it needed someone, and REM bridged the gap between like post-punk. They were the first alternative rock band, and they were a massive influence on, wait for it, Nirvana, Pavement, Sonic Youth. But shove that up your pipe and smoke it as tobacco. Don't, that's bad for you. Their Murmur, their first album, was Rolling Stones' album of the year.
Right, okay.
And was absolutely brills.
Right.
And Michael Stipe is very well liked.
Elis James and John Robbins podcast
XFM.
on XFM.
You're listening to Elis James, John Robbins on XFM, and we are discussing REM,
Rapid Eye Movement.
Rapid Eye Movement, which was, they picked that name at random from a dictionary, and I can't read out the previous names because they're too offensive that they've chosen for that band.
So did Ash. Ash couldn't think of a name, so they just chose a name at random. They put a pin, open the dictionary, put a pin, and that was the word. Now, they didn't open the dictionary very wide. I mean, Ash, that must have been like page 2 or something, if it's like the Collins Gem, the English dictionary.
And what was that close to? What would Ash have been close to?
I'm thinking of a rude word, so I think we should probably carry on.
A, B, C, D, F, G, H, I, A, S, I, S.
We should have... What we should really do is get a dictionary.
Yeah.
At the moment we're guessing, and it's like that bit from Blackadder when Blackadder's trying to write the dictionary in the night because he's thrown on a fire.
Oh, we've had lots of texts and tweets about REM. I wouldn't have put them as a band that divide opinion. For me, they are the Tom Hanks of music, the Friends box set of music. They're sort of cool, but not sort of not particularly edgy. We've had a tweet in from Calmimieg, who says REM is the best band ever. Definitely paddock worthy.
We've also had a very angry text for a bloke saying REM, put them in the abattoir. I hate them so much. So
I just don't understand how you can hate REM. One thing I really respect about them is that they, considering for a time, interestingly, last week we talked about U2 and they're in the abattoir. They were the two biggest bands on the planet in like the early 90s.
In the 90s, yeah.
And REM dealt with that a lot better. And Morrissey, actually, in his autobiography, Michael Stipe's one of the few people he is kind about. He said he's a really nice guy. And Kurt Cobain said of REM that they're the greatest because they dealt with success without sort of selling out, without
Tom
changing.
York said that. Tom York used to call Michael Stipe for advice. I am making your arguments for you. R.E.M. are rubbish. Chuck them in the abattoir. Don't know what you're talking about, John. You're an idiot.
I'm persuading you because my arguments are so great.
You're an idiot, mate. And yeah.
FM. Elis James and John Robbins on XFM podcast.
It's still Secret Cow time. We're discussing R.E.M. and it's really divided opinion on the texts and tweets. R.E.M. are the best band ever, definitely paddock worthy, from Kale Meg, but one person's brought me into it. Good morning to you both. R.E.M. to the paddock, Elis to the abattoir. All my love, Jack. That's not what we're discussing. Just because I don't like R.E.M. doesn't mean that I'm going to get sent to the abattoir. I'm just stimulating debate. People are saying that Automatic for the People is one of the greatest albums ever and that we should put them in the paddock. Low Jov's The World. No, that's not right. Low Joe versus the World. Michael Stipe terrifies me. Hearing just little clips of R.E.M. is freaking me out. Send them to the abattoir.
He's quite an interesting figure, Michael Stipe, because they didn't, when Automatic for the People and Out of Time came out, their massive smash album, they didn't tour that. And people thought Michael Stipe was really ill. And then the tour after they did that, it was beset by mad... A friend of mine went to see them, actually.
In about 1995, sort of monster.
Yeah, one of them had an aneurysm.
Yes. The drummer.
Yeah. And
he left the band, didn't he? Because obviously he couldn't continue.
No, he left the band quite a long time after that.
Oh.
He left the band in, I think, 2005.
My friend had a ticket to that show and they had to cancel the gig in Cardiff, I think, because of his aneurysm.
Right.
And obviously R.E.M. Whatever my opinions are on them musically, my friend did get a full refund. That's not what we're discussing. So I think it's time to throw to producer Simon, who's gonna give us the verdict whether R.E.M. or abattoir or paddock bound. Producer Simon, have you collated the texts and tweets?
I have. I can tell you it was closer than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I didn't think people would be anti-R.E.M. at all.
No, but it seems it's been quite level pegging all the way up until recently. I don't know what happened to sway it, but I can tell you that R.E.M. have made it into the paddock. Is that the right sound effect?
Because one bloke said you should put them in the abattoir and do it inhumanely. This guy was a very angry person. To be honest, I was just trying to stimulate it a bit. I'm not going to be too disappointed because they have got some absolute belting tunes.
And to celebrate, we're going to play. This is a song that was really big for me when I was growing up. This is sort of soundtrack to '96 for me. I had the best rock anthems ever, and it's one of those compilations that I listen to so much that when I hear this song on the album, I immediately hear the next song on the compilation.
Which is like Boston.
No, it was the Waterboys, The Road to Nowhere. So I'll be thinking, what? It's another R.E.M. song on this. Oh, it's the album. So, ladies and gentlemen, to celebrate R.E.M.'s entrance to the paddock, we have The Sidewinder Sleeps Tonight.
XFM. Elis James and John Robbins on XFM podcast.
It's an exciting part of the show because there's unfinished business afoot. I'm not saying that John Robbins is so competitive that it's almost a disability, but he is.
Well, wow. Well, what we're talking about is last week's Winner Plays On, or #Farthingate, as it's being referred to across social media. It was not my level of competitive spirit that was the problem. It was a problem that you and producer Dave weren't prepared.
We were in cahoots.
I was dealt two injustices and was the only one who was guiltless. If it had been my fault, I hold my hands up. I did absolutely nothing wrong.
John, it's a little silly competition. You've got tears in your eyes.
I don't have tears in my eyes. I don't.
He's now got tears. We've got producer Simon confirmed that he's got a single tear rolling down his cheek, Sinead O'Connor style.
He is looking rather emotionally wrought. Yeah.
I just like Amnesty, like Médecins Sans Frontières. I hate injustice. And I think we can now, in a sort of HBO box set style, can go previously on Winner Plays On. Well, hey, that first question was not a question, so you need to ask me another question about Farthings, because I've currently got 4 points.
Can we just go to the tie-break? I can't... It took me like a day to get those 5 questions. It's such a boring topic.
how many copies of their debut album, Youth and Young Manhood, had Kings of Leon sold in its first year. Elis, you went for 2.75 million, I think.
I might well have done.
Yeah. John, you went for 6.25 million.
Right.
It was 940,000.
I think that was the other way round. I went for 275, no, this went 6.2. But to avoid further complications, I'll just kill myself. I've been done a disservice twice, and I'm suspecting some kind of fix, because that was impossible to win.
Well,
I'm very upset for a number of quite key reasons about this. And I maintain that is the case. But in order to enter Pastures New, that is now on the whiteboard of Winner Plays On results. That has been declared void, disputed, void.
John did that.
So, right, correctly. So it is. The scores are. It's 4-2 to me, and this week...
you're the winner, mate. You're the winner in all this.
No,
It's
don't,
great.
because that is the worst. And when someone goes, okay, John wins everything. It's fine. Just John wins everything. That makes me feel even worse. Just say it matters.
Yeah, it matters.
And then if I win fairly, great. If I lose fairly, great. That's what competition is. I've got nothing wrong. If we get knocked out of the park at Anfield today, not a problem with that. 5-0, fair enough, fair play, mate. I just don't want a decision to go against us. Anyway.
Basically, John wants television technology to be introduced into football matches.
And radio quizzes. Well, we're analysing the replay there, and producer Dave has not prepared a tiebreaker. So if you actually look at the rules and regs, in this situation, John should be declared the winner. So anyway, coming up after music from the Pixies, we will have Chapter 2 of Winner Plays On. You're listening to XFM.
Proper supporters. You can't beat them. But just imagine if your business had the same kind of support as your team. The government is helping businesses all over the country with support for financing, support for innovation, support for exporting, and support for leadership training. And we're not talking part-time supporters either. Move your business up a league. Go to businesssupport.gov.uk.
Elis James and John Robbins podcast. XFM.
It's time for a particularly tense Winner Plays On.
Well, I'm hoping not too tense. I hope to leave the tension at last week.
Very fitting music, producer Simon, because obviously John, he's a wounded animal.
That was not a noise. That was the noise of an injured camp 70s TV host. I apologise in my accent bank. Came up with nothing.
I went seal spotting in West Wales this week,
And Larry Grayson was there.
and that's the sort of sound of seal neck.
Okay, well, I'm happy with that.
So, yeah, you sounded like a wounded seal, but the reason John sounds like a wounded seal is that he feels he was done a disservice last week during Winner Plays On for various reasons we won't go into now, but it's time for the coin toss to decide who gets to go first.
Okay, Ellis, as always, pick.
Tail. Oh, he's just dropped the coin. That was slick.
It's
All right,
already cursed.
Let's do it again. Tails for Wales, please.
Okay, it is tails for Wales.
Right, then I would like you to go first, if that's okay.
Oh, I'm answering questions.
You're answering questions on your chosen topic, which this week is
The Life and Times of Alan Partridge.
Okay.
Hang on, we need the dramatic music that I don't think is there, which is fine. So we'll carry on with the epic music. So,
for the
Ellis,
counter, here we go, yeah? Ready?
hit.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
Question 1. Finish this quote. Come to London, stopping at.
Backstabbing Central. Rejection Parkway.
Is that your final answer?
And say it again. Give me again.
Come to London, stopping at.
Rejections Parkway, Backstabbing Central, and... Oh, I can't.
I'm afraid it's Rejection, Disappointment, Backstabbing Central and Shattered Dreams Parkway.
Oh, Christmas.
Before it's renegotiated on her behalf, how much does Alan pay Lynn, his PA?
$8,000 a year.
Yes. How many A-levels does Partridge have?
2.
Yes. How long did Alan live at Linton Travel Tavern for?
In days?
Yes, in days.
182?
Yes, that's correct. And you've got one question left. Alan describes visiting the bird sanctuary with Jill as the best Valentine's Day he's had for 8 years. What does he do on the previous Valentine's Day?
He shook Jackie Stewart's hand.
Yes, he shook Jackie Stewart.
At Silverstone.
Yes, by the hand, right. That is exceptional.
I can't believe I got the travel tab. Is it 182?
It is 182 days.
Brilliant. So that was that 4?
4.
You are a weird guy.
Okay. So, okay. One of your questions was actually suggested by a listener.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. In private.
All right.
So,
you're talking to the listeners in private now, are you?
So, Elis, what is your... Yeah, and they all think... You're really great. What is your chosen topic?
The super furry animals.
Okay, so 5 questions on the super furry animals starts now. Which super furry animals track appears in the film The Social Network?
Hey Venus.
No, it was Bleed Forever. The band took their name from T-shirts Reese's sister was making for what music collective whose name features throughout their work?
Oh, the Plastic Casual. Or the Acid Casuals.
Correct, I'll give you that. What is the band's highest charting UK single?
Ice Hockey Hair.
It's Northern Lights. Which music video was directed by comedian Richard Ayoade?
Oh, I don't know.
Runaway. What is the first track on the album Gorilla?
That's their 3rd album. It was released in 1999, and I can't remember.
It's a trick question. It's actually a hidden track called The Citizens Band.
Oh. Why don't you
So in
get...
a dramatic return to the status quo, Robins 4, James, Animals, Wales as a Nation, 1. It's a record. Is it a record low? No, you've scored one before. So, Robin's victorious. I'm not going to gloat because there was no foul play. Everything was fair. Good questions from both guys. What's your topic for next week, Elis?
Shattered Dreams Parkway. I really love the furries, and I'm very sad. So I'm going to take this time to think of my topic.
Well, while Elis,
because I was convinced I was going to win actually, but I didn't do the revision. It's the story of my A-levels.
Well, to celebrate that, while Elis thinks about his topic for next week, we're going to listen to what I think we can probably all say is an out-and-out platinum smash. This is Teenage Kicks by the Undertones.
Elis James and John Robbins podcast.
Right, next week it's a very special day for music lovers, vinyl lovers everywhere, because next Saturday is Record Store Day. So have we tweeted it yet, the picture? Producer Simon?
Not just yet. It'll be coming up.
Jump in the gun, Al.
I am jumping the gun.
Why don't we talk to the listeners about what Record Store Day is?
Okay, well, it's fairly obvious, isn't it? So, I mean, it does what it says on the tin. I mean, it's not... I'm trying to think of something deliberately vague.
Record Store Day takes place on Saturday, the 19th of April in stores all across the UK. Began in 2007 after 700 US independent record stores joined together to celebrate vinyl.
I could have worked all of that out from the title Record Store Day.
What, the date?
Yes. Well, I'd already said it was next week.
Well, that's good enough. Yeah. When's the London Marathon? Next week. See you there.
Yeah, and where is it?
London.
Thank you. Thank you very much. What I couldn't have worked out is that xfm.co.uk is a list of the top 50 records you shouldn't miss. Releases this year included David Bowie's re-release, a double A-side from Damon Albarn, tracks from Bombay Bicycle Club, and live music from Jake Bugg. I couldn't have worked that out
So should
from
we
Record Store Day.
before, because me and Elis have both brought in our two favourite vinyl LPs. But before we reveal them and I win who's brought in the best album competition, we're going to talk a bit about sort of record stores of our youth.
John's competitive side rearing its ugly head again.
So when I was growing up in Bristol, the independent record stores of Bristol marked out your route around the town when you went out shopping, and you'd get into the bus station, you've got Replay, then you'd walk up Park Row, and then you'd get to the double there. You had FOP and, well, previously it wasn't called FOP, but you had FOP and Imperial. And for me, Imperial Records on Park Street, sadly no longer with us, was just where I discovered so much music. So it's when I first got into Zappa, and I would go, and whereas like nowhere else would have any, they'd have like 8 of his albums, and I'd buy them, and then I'd go back 2 weeks later, and they'd have been replaced with different ones, and they're all $5.99. And it was, and that was the period of my life when you knew if you bought an album, if it was recommended in Imperial Records, it was a smash. So that's when I got into Mercury Rev, Deserter Songs. Remember that year?
Oh yeah.
Deserter Songs, Race for the Prize by Flaming Lips, Gastra del Sol, Bonnie Prince Billy. The past. And it's not there anymore.
No, it is a shame. In Carmarthen, there was only one really. It was Slipped Discs. Fantastic name for a record shop.
Well, from someone who slipped a disc 3 times, I can say that would have brought back very hard memories.
Okay.
Imagine if you were going to a running shoe shop called Athlete's Foot, which is a great name for a running shop.
Do you know what? There is somebody listening right now who's like, I've been made redundant, and now I know what the path of my life has been made clear. I'm going to run a trainer shop called Athlete's Foot, and it's called Slip Discs, and it's because I grew up in the same town as the Gorky Psychotic Monkey. They used to go there before I did, and I used to talk to lovely Una who ran it, and she'd say, "Oh, it's interesting you buy that because the Gorky's like that, do they? Then I'll take it. I'll take 2 of them." And then I went to Cardiff University because of Spillers Records, which is the oldest record shop in the world.
Yeah, I've been to Spillers. It's an absolute belter.
And I went to Spillers.
That's like the most famous record shop in the UK, really, isn't it?
Yeah, probably. Sister Ray Records in London is a very famous record shop, I think. But I can't think of any more famous ones than Spillers, I don't think, because of the T-shirts. Phil Jupitus wore a Spillers Records T-shirt on Never Mind the Buzzcocks a couple of times.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that is pretty cool.
So what were the sort of albums you were getting into through Spillers?
Through Spillers? Well, you'd go in, and they're always playing great stuff. And also, they've got a listening station, so if there's anything you've heard of but you're not sure about...
God, I remember when Virgin Megastore used to be able to listen to the CDs.
Yeah.
You could take them up to the counter.
Yes.
God, we sound like old men.
Yeah, I bought a Deerhoof album.
Deerhoof are great.
They are great, but I'd heard that they were good. But, because obviously... money was tight. I was a student. I said, "Can I listen to this Deerhoof album?" And the lovely staff at Spillers were like, "Yeah, man, you're gonna love it. It's amazing." And it was great. So it's Record Store Day is next Saturday, the 19th of April. So do turn up at your local record shop and buy plenty of vinyl.
So the 2 vinyls that me and Elis have bought in. Elis, do you want to talk briefly about your record first of all?
Mine is Boyd Time, the 3rd album by Gorky Psychotic Monkey. Boyd Time means food time.
Not bird time in New York.
No.
Speak. Hey, have you got that Boyd Time album? It's pretty great.
And it's got one of the most beautiful covers of any record I've ever seen. All the Gorky's albums and EPs at the time had this similar sort of cover, and it's just absolutely beautiful. I actually think we should tweet just a picture of the album on the XFM Twitter page, just so people can see it. But I suggested this during the Dev song, and everyone just sort of went a bit quiet. So I'm not actually sure that's going to happen. But what's your record, John?
Well, I've been listening to music for many years. I'm pretty sure I've listened to it all. I've got over 600 albums on my iTunes. It's just to put that into perspective, which is pretty much all of them. And this is an objective fact. This is not opinion. You can't disagree with this because it's true that the greatest album of all time is Astral Weeks by Van Morrison.
Better than Queen?
Yes.
Oh.
It's a masterpiece, and I think it's the greatest piece of art in the 20th century.
Better than Citizen Kane?
Yes.
Better than Jackson Pollock's sort of splashy paintings?
Far better than that.
I thought you were going to swear then. So much.
So my friend bought me a sort of an anniversary reissue of Astral Weeks on heavy vinyl. And I, Elis, unlike you, not a real fan, I've had mine framed.
Elis James and John Robbins podcast
XFM.
on XFM.
That's Mountains by Biffy Clyro, which I mistakenly thought was a cover of an R. Kelly song called World's Greatest. But it does have the same line, and which was also covered by Bonnie Prince Billy on the album Ask Forgiveness.
I used to have an early 90s dance compilation.
Of course you did.
On CD when I was sort of 13 or something, and it was called something like On a Dance Tip.
Yeah.
And
what does that even mean?
I have no idea. It was, but it had people like Informer by Snow and stuff on it, and it had this R. Kelly song, and his first big single. And my friend put it up really, really loud, and it started by going. And then as long as you had it loud enough, at the end you'd go, oh. It's really funny.
It's a bit like that Nutri-Milk Hotel song, Oh Comely. If you turn it up really loud at the very end, because they did it in one take and it was meant to be a rehearsal, you can hear the guy in the sound desk swearing because it's so amazing. He goes, oh, well, I can't say it, but he goes, holy... And then
cow.
It's holy cow.
XFM. Elis James and John Robbins on XFM podcast.
It's Sunday, you're still listening to Elis James and John Robbins, and it's very exciting because it's shout-out time. John, we've tossed a coin. It's your turn. We've only ever done one before.
Yeah. So we try and distance ourselves as far as possible from sort of those pirate radio shout-outs. So they have to be like things that would never be shouted out anywhere. And this one, we didn't ask for these, but it's come in. And if this is real, then Godspeed to you guys. Elis, you've just moved that down, so I can't read it anymore.
Sorry.
Thank you. That made it sound like we're closer than we are in the studio. There is at least 8 feet between us at all times. So here we go. Can you please give a mention to all the drivers at the Harrow and Wembley Society of Model Engineers who will be driving steam trains today in Roxbourne Park Field End Road... Hang on, in Roxbourne Park, Field End Road, Eastcott. Thanks, Martin. Now, Martin, I'm going to make a confession. I'm not sure of the many different types, shapes, sizes of people that listen to XFM, that the Wembley Society of Model Engineers is part of any sort of emails about key demographics. Make sure we keep the model engineers on side, guys. You know what they're like if you don't play enough wombats. But if by any twist of fate you are a member of the Harrow and Wembley Society of Model Engineers and you are driving a steam train today, I hope you're having a cracking day. It's a lovely day for it.
I love the idea of Martin turning up a little bit late to the meeting. And I'm like, where have you been, Martin? She's like, it's fine, sorry, I had to text XFM. They're going to do a shout-out over the next couple of hours. People aren't going to forget about the Harrow and Wembley Society of Model Engineers. I've texted XFM. I've texted all the pirate radio stations in the area. They were very quick on the uptake. That was great, actually. But XFM was still waiting, but I'm fairly confident they'll do it.
Also, here's a fun plug. By a bemusing twist of fate, I am on a TV show called My Vintage today, picking some of my top ever tracks.
Are you?
Yeah.
What for?
For the opportunity to tell people to listen to some of my favourite songs.
Oh, what channel is it?
It's called My Vintage. It is a digital channel with, I mean, not to sound like Alan Partridge, with one of the biggest shares of any digital vintage music radio stations on earth. But it was great fun, so if you want to see it, they play the music videos as well and stuff. And I dare say there's a couple of Frank Zappa songs there.
Also, John and I have the same agent, and I was asked to do this, so I'm now going to make a very awkward phone call to our shared manager.
Elis James and John Robbins podcast. XFM.
Thanks very much for listening to the show. Hope you enjoyed it. It was a good one, wasn't it, El?
Yeah. I thought we were really solid today. Very, very capable broadcasting. And yeah, producer Dave was, replaced by producer Simon, but I thought he was great. He stepped in. He immediately engaged with our vibe.
I'd love to just be able to cut to where Dave is now.
Yeah.
I Hey, have you seen how much it is for a toaster? It's an absolute disgrace.
Toaster. So clearly trying to source a toaster for some reason in Amsterdam.
€4? You're joking, aren't you?
Or maybe they're just driving along and off to the Van Gogh Museum.
Maybe they're looking at tulips.
I don't know why I said Van Gogh. I've never pronounced it Van Gogh before. Van Gogh.
Yeah, come on, mate.
So have a lovely week, everyone, and take care. Bye-bye.
Cheers, bye.
If you like this podcast, why not check out some of the other great ones available to download at xfm.co.uk. XFM. Josh Widdicombe.
Now we come to the point in the show where we are joined by our third kind of resident news hound in a way. Not the major news, but let's leave it for him. Please welcome Nish Kumar.
Good morning, or is it?
There's the catchphrase. It's very rare that someone gets a catchphrase so soon. Brucey had to wait 20 years, I imagine.
I've been waiting my entire life to get a catchphrase, and not one that the public picked up on. I've always wanted to engineer my own catchphrase.
Like Paul Ince, when he called himself the governor.
Yeah, exactly. I tried to force the nickname NK47 when I was at school, but it didn't really come off. Gangster rapper.
Music that rocks. XFM.